mine said, when my wife and I aren't getting along, I'm the most miserable human being in the world. And when he said that, I went, man, that sounds like me. You're gonna have conflict. You can't go to work and not have conflict. You can't have kids and not have conflict. And I know you can't go to your in-laws' house and not have conflict. So conflict is normal. The problem is that when we have conflict, we start separating from each other. And I still remember the first night I started talking to my wife about our bond. It shifted something inside of us. And as crazy as it sounds, the dramatic part of it for me was how much shifted inside of me when I became aware of some things that I was not aware of before. Lord, I reject the lie that I have to earn blessing before I can get it. In your name we pray. Amen. Well, hey, if you're here and you could be, who knows? You do a marriage conference, who knows, right? Where you're at in your marriage. And I was thinking about this not too long ago. Like earlier today. So that's how far ahead I planned, right? So I was thinking about this. I was thinking about how basically most of us are damaged in some way. And then we got into this marriage, and then we kind of created some damage in the marriage. Now, I'm kind of a realistic person. I've also been counseling couples for 30 years, so that's kind of where I'm coming from. I just sort of seen a lot of things, and so honestly, when I started out doing, I graduated from graduate school in 1985 with a counseling degree. I was just a kid. I remember how shocked I was, because I was on staff at a church in the Bay Area. I remember how shocked I was because I had a master's degree now, so people would come to me for marriage counseling who were like in their 50s, and I was like barely 30. And I used to sit there in the office thinking, why are these people coming to me? And I don't know the answer to that. Maybe God brought them there. I have come to believe that God brings people to me. He brings people to you and all of us. But for years, I didn't enjoy doing marriage counseling. Honestly, I'd get a phone call and somebody would go, do you do marriage counseling on the phone? And I'd go, yes. And it was just like I barely could grunt it out of me because I didn't know how, I just wasn't very good at it. Honestly, I wasn't very good at doing it. But about between 5 and 6 years ago, a very good friend of mine from college, she was part of my posse. Anybody go to college or high school? You had a posse, right? She was part of my posse, and she ended up becoming a counselor. She just calls me out of the blue. She lives in Portland, Oregon. Calls me out of the blue and starts telling me about some research and some things they're doing in marriage counseling, and it's the latest, greatest thing. And it's all connected to what they call attachment. We use the word of bonding because, when you're doing a marriage conference, you don't say, we're going to do a marriage conference on attachment, because nobody flocks to the event, right? You talk about bonding, it may be a little more intimidating, but it sounds a little more like something couples might want to do. Hi, babe, we can attach tonight? No, I don't think so. So anyway, she's telling me about this attachment stuff. So attachment is basically another word for bonding. Anyway, she tells me about this, so I start doing some research, and this is like, we'd been married just about 30 years at the time, maybe a little less than that. Felt like we had a pretty good marriage. Would honestly say, didn't always feel like that in marriage. We created enough of our own damage in our marriage from our own lives prior to that, but at this time in our life, when my friend called me, we were doing pretty good. We'd go to a marriage conference, maybe thinking, let's strengthen our marriage. Let's make it better. But there were times, Sherry and I went to counseling because our marriage was a mess. So we spent time in front of a counselor. I was going to start counting them up. But anyway, we spent time in front of counselors for our marriage. And honestly, even though I'm a counselor, I didn't really want to go to counseling. I'm kind of one of those guys that I'd love to go to counseling with a counselor every week, but just go by myself. I really don't want to necessarily, sorry babe, take my wife with me. It's just one of those things I want a man-to-man conversation. Anyway, so we got and we started researching that. I started researching that. And as I read this material, the thing that went through my head was I had no idea about this stuff. So Sherry and I took a trip to Santa Barbara, and basically I had prepared for this trip, and on the way down there, we began to talk about what this bonding stuff was about. It's very practical stuff. It's so simple, it's crazy. But we started using it in our marriage. And now when I do marriage counseling, I really enjoy it because probably partly because I'm older and partly because of this process that we've learned about. And that's what we're going to be taking you through over the next couple of days. So I want you to think about what it's like when your marriage is messed up. And I don't mean on the general scale. I mean, you're just having a bad week, or maybe you're having a bad day. You had some kind of conflict, maybe in the morning, in the afternoon. I know y'all don't have that happen in your marriages, but you have something going on, and you sort of go into that zone where you're just kind of mad at each other. Did you ever get mad at each other, And you have these conversations in your head, right? You're actually, you have the conflict conversation, and then you go your separate ways, but you're still having the conversation in your head, and you're picturing your spouse, right? You're picturing her or him, and you're telling them all the stuff you didn't tell them when you were actually standing in front of them. And then later you might even think, didn't we have this conversation already? And you didn't, but you had it in your head. And so it's during that period of time, that in-between time, when things aren't good, things are disjointed because you don't have harmony with each other. It's like the worst feeling in the world. So when things aren't going well, and here's the challenge, because if that happens too much, a marriage falls apart. Because how many of you heard at some point, either before you were married or after you were married, somebody told you conflict is normal. It's kind of the picture of separation from God. If you know that idea that man being separated from God, and he's alone and he's isolated. And in that separation, we know that God says it's not good for man to be alone. Talking about people, us, we need relationship. So it's in that it's kind of like the dead zone where you're miserable because you're not getting along with your spouse. How many of you know what I'm talking about? So here's what I want you to do. This is a simple thing I want to have you do. I'm going to have the ladies go first. I'm going to have you say something to your husband. Husbands, ladies. Now, ladies, just to be clear, I don't want you to go say this to all the men in here. I just want you to say it to your husband. Okay, so kind of shift. Get some nonverbal shifting going on here. Just shift a little bit. Real simple thing. If you feel the need to change the words a little bit, now watch, if you want to change the words, it's okay. But if you do it, the closer you do it to the way I say it, the better it's going to be for you. Okay? But you can change it a little bit just to kind of, some people have their own style, right? Okay, ladies, you're going first. Look at your husband, and you repeat after me. Honey, I hate it when we're not getting along. I'm miserable, and I miss you. Okay, now look at me, ladies. Now some people are starting to talk. You want to talk more, huh? So you're already bonding and wanting to spend more time together and talk, right? Okay, now, was that true, ladies? Is what you just said true? Okay, so I was watching you. I think so. Okay, guys, you ready to go? Clear your throats. You guys need water? The guys get nervous right now. Their throats start drying up. We have water, See, I just spilled it on the stage. We have water. Okay, guys, ready? And you can, when I use the endearment, honey, you use yours, because I know somebody was telling me his, endearments can really go all across the scale, right? But you can say honey or whatever. Honey. Okay, say it louder. Honey. Okay, wait, here. Okay, everybody look at me. I want you to say everybody in the room, say the endearment you typically, at the same time, when I say go, just say it out loud. Because nobody's going to hear one of them, right? Just want you to say it out loud, the endearment you use the most for your spouse. 1, 2, 3, go.
Beauty.
You didn't say anything, Laura. What's up with that?
I thought you said just the guy.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, now, it's the guy's turn, right? Okay, guys, your turn. Here we go. Honey, I hate it that we don't get along sometimes. And when we're not getting along, I'm miserable.
And I miss you.
And yes, thank you. Yeah. You're 100% right. Okay, look at each other. Look at each other, guys. I'm going to finish that off. When we're not getting along, all I can think about is how I wish we were getting along. And I start missing you. Okay. And thanks for the coaching. Okay. Now we're going to do another little exercise here. So I just told you something. I talked about how what it's like, and then you just said something. Even though you were repeating my words, some of you may not all identify with this. Some of you are like, then you felt a little bit of what I was just telling you, right? That's how the whole weekend's going to be. I'm going to tell you things, and then I'm going to have you say things to each other, and you're going to understand them a little bit more, hopefully. If you're not, we'll pray for you. That's all I can tell you. Okay, now, another little exercise, really important exercise. I want you to, I'm going to have you look each other in the eyes right now. Okay, look each other in the eyes. Not yet, though. Wait on, not yet. I'm going to tell you to go. Look at me. I'm going to have you go, and I'm going to say go, and then I'm going to tell you to stop at a certain point. And don't talk, don't say anything, just look each other right in the eyes. You ready? Get set, go. Okay, stop. Okay, what was that like? Anybody want to share? Kind of. What's that?
It's a little weird.
It's a little weird? I know. If somebody says that every time, usually it's a weird person. No. You're welcome. What was that like to do that? Anybody else want to just, maybe it's a little early, but just was it uncomfortable? How long did that seem to you?
It was kind of refreshing, to be honest.
Okay.
Because I think with busy lives, you just don't get to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We're going to do it again. Go ahead. So you can start now. Don't talk. Okay, you can stop. Everybody's okay, so here's what I don't do this exercise because it's humorous and entertaining to me, but it is. The last time I did this conference, we had 60 couples. It was in Lake Tahoe. What's that? Yeah, yeah, I know. Well, I'm easily entertained. So anyway, so we had like 60 couples. So you had a much greater variety. But there were people. I just sort of look around the room. So I'll talk about the last group. I won't talk about you guys. I'll make fun of them, okay? So, but you look around the room, and some people are like, they are working hard just to hold that stare. You could see people almost, kind of doing that. Just, it's like, there wasn't anything about the stare that was attractive. It was just, I'm going to stare. I'm staring at my wife. I'm going to do this assignment, right? Fulfill it. And then there's usually some discomfort. Why do you think it's uncomfortable? Anybody have any ideas? Why do you think it might be uncomfortable to just sit and stare each other in the eyes? It's vulnerable, yeah. So it's vulnerable. What is it about that that's vulnerable? That's a really good, I remember I was dating this girl, and I met her dad, and I remember after we went out to dinner, and afterwards he said, I noticed he looked him in the eyes when he talked to me. So that suggested to me a lot of people don't do that. So why is it vulnerable? Anybody have any ideas on that? Because I don't think there's any clinical answer, but why do you think that would be? Why does it feel uncomfortable, you think, vulnerable? You're exposing yourself. Okay. So do we reveal something about ourselves when people can see our eyes? You think so? Okay, that's interesting. There's an old saying, right? What's that saying? Your eyes are the window of the soul. So now think about, if you've had kids, think about when your kids were little. Some of you, your kids are little now. But when I say little, I mean up to, say, 4 or 5, 6, right around there. But especially when they're infants, toddlers, think about how easy it was to look them in the eyes. Do you remember doing that? Now, some parents don't do that with their kids. Some parents don't hug their kids. Some parents don't touch their kids very often. And some parents don't look their kids in the eyes. But it's easy to look a child in the eyes. Why is it easy to look a child in the eyes? Anybody? They're harmless. What's that? No baggage. Yeah. No baggage. They're harmless. Isn't it interesting that simple thing of looking at somebody in the eyes has this vulnerability to it, and yet when we think of children, we say they're harmless. Another way to say this is they're safe. And so part of what is required, probably one of the most important pieces to being able to bond with somebody, is to be able to be a safe person. So when you're a child, you may have grown up in a home. I grew up in a home one of my parents wasn't a safe person. So the bond that I had with them wasn't based on safety and security. There wasn't trust there. But I had a bond. I had a bond because I was connected to that person because he was my dad. So I had a connection to him. But for the most part, it wasn't very safe. And what makes a bond powerful is when it feels, and it is, and we have the knowledge of knowing that it's safe. So what is it, just to throw that out there real quick, when you think of a safe bond, what comes to your mind? It may be one word, it may be a phrase, but when you think of a safe bond, what comes to your mind? Trust. Anything else?
Love.
What's that?
Love.
Love. Security. So we got love, we got trust, we have security. So if you take, and acceptance. So you got love, trust, security, and acceptance. Now I want you to think about that. I want you to imagine having that. And you may not, that may be hurting in your relationship right now. That may be a challenge for you in your marriage. It is in every marriage, it's at different times. And when that's a challenge, that's when we end up in that zone where we begin to separate, we begin to find ourselves disconnected from one another. So we're going to take a brief break, let you go get some water if you want, and then just like 4 or 5 minutes. Take a break, go grab some water, and then we'll come back together, okay? Yeah. Let me get Jermaine down here because I need to go do something. He needs some help. Thanks.